Terence Crawford has filed a lawsuit against Bob Arum in which he claims his former promoter's revolting you-know-what bias prevented him from securing big fights and earning millions. It's reported that he's suing for damages expected to be up to $10 million. Another tweet here from Michael Benson quoting Terence Crawford, who says, "Top Rank, a company with 0 black executives and only 2 or 3 black employees, refuses to admit that it does not care about, support, or know how to promote black fighters." And there's an ESPN article here by Mike Coppinger, who himself has had his own run-ins with Bob Arum recently. Bob Arum himself has refuted these claims. He's called this lawsuit a frivolous extortion attempt, well, frivolous and malicious extortion attempt. And he's talked about the various black fighters and fighters of all shades that he's promoted over the years. Now, here's my take on it. At the end of the day, I'm an outsider looking in. I've never met Bob Arum. I've never worked in his company. I've never been around the guy, thankfully. And I've also never been around Terence Crawford. So again, this is just the opinion of an outsider. I'm not going to claim to have any kind of special knowledge on the ins and outs of their relationship. But to me, I can understand why people are turned off by Terence Crawford coming out with this type of accusation using the R word, because we live in a time of this wokery, which disgusts me as much as I know it disgusts a lot of you, where people throw certain accusations like the R word around far too liberally. Okay. And we know that certain elements of the media like to play on the R word and use that for political clout. Certain political parties like to use the R word for clout and so on. So I get it. And I understand why people are turned off by Crawford coming out with this. Now, I don't know whether there's any validity to what Terence Crawford is saying. I'm not dismissing the possibility because, look, yes, wokery is something I despise like many of you do, but that doesn't mean that the R word doesn't exist. Of course it exists. As long as there are different races, the R word will exist. I just have a different view in terms of, how to deal with that particular thing. I don't think we need to start going schizophrenic about it, and trying to censor every single thing that people say. That is, to me, a step in the wrong direction, because once you start censoring people to that level, to that degree, it creates tension. It creates resentment. And that pressure will build and build and build and build until bursting point. And at bursting point, things can get ugly. So I think you have to allow people to let off steam to a certain degree. This whole idea that you can eliminate the R word completely, I think is a psychotic fantasy. You can't. As long as different races exist, the R word will always exist. You have to learn to live with it, within reason. So with that out the way, let's just speculate for a moment. And let's just say that there is no validity to what Terence Crawford is saying with regards to the R word, but he's just using it, or perhaps his legal team have decided to use it to bolster their case in suing Bob Arum. Because one thing I can say is that Bob Arum was very critical of Terence Crawford, openly critical, which is a really disturbing thing to see when you've got one of the best pound for pound fighters in the world and he's winning in style, and you're coming out basically deriding him and you're supposed to be promoting him. That is very off, to say the least. So perhaps, again, this is all speculation on my part, his legal team looked at it and said, yeah, maybe we can sue him because he didn't get you the big fights and he did openly deride you and stuff like that while he was supposed to be promoting you, but we might need to put a bit of sauce on it. Do you know what I mean? We might need a bit of extra spice to have any real chance of winning this case. So maybe you could just throw the R word in there. It might spice it up a bit. Perhaps that's what happened. And in terms of what do I think if that is the case, well, it's not a good thing, but at the same time, Bob Arum is such a scumbag, and the man really is one of the biggest scumbags in boxing. When scummy things happen to scummy people, I can't say I'm shedding any tears. You know, would it have been better from, you know, in the context of what's going on in the world right now, particularly the Western world, would it have been better if the R word wasn't included in this lawsuit? Yes, it would have been better. But nevertheless, you know, even though it's not an ideal situation, and again, that's assuming that there is no validity to this R word, right? In this case, perhaps there is, I don't know. But if there isn't, it's not good, but I won't be losing any sleep. I won't be shedding any tears for Mr. Arum. That's for sure. When scummy things happen to scummy people, I shrug my shoulders like, it is what it is. Do you know what I mean? I can't call it. I'm not a judge at the end of the day. It's up to the courts to decide whether there's any validity to what Terence Crawford is saying. Obviously, courts are courts. You know, you can't always rely on them, of course. You often can't rely on them. But in matters like this, you know, civil matters, hopefully they can sort it out and make a fair judgment. Let's just hope for that. So let's see what happens. Because if Terence Crawford hadn't included this particular element in the lawsuit, I think most people, the vast majority of people, would be cheering him on, suing Bob Arum. Let's be real. But because this element has been included, it's turned a lot of people off. But at the end of the day, this is not the court of public opinion, is it? It's up to the actual civil court to decide whether Terence Crawford's claim has any validity to it. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And I'm most interested in who Terence Crawford is actually going to sign with now. And to be fair, before I talk about that, it has to be said, Terence Crawford chose to sign with Bob Arum, and he chose to re-sign with him, which at the time I thought was strange. Maybe it was because he was promised a Pacquiao fight or something. I don't know, because I think Pacquiao was still with Bob Arum at the time. Or maybe Crawford signed an extension even after Pacquiao left. I can't remember now. But you do have to put some blame on Terence Crawford for keep signing with this guy. Why not go with a different promoter when you had the opportunity? You know, although I'm sure Terence Crawford and his team would probably say, well, when we had the opportunity to leave, we were given all these, you know, we were made all these promises and told we were going to get this fight and that fight. Well, you know, do you believe it? Anybody can say anything. Any promoter can promise you anything. Doesn't mean they're going to deliver it. So you have to go on their previous track record. Were you happy with his previous track? I mean, I don't know. Long story short, that is what that is. As far as who Terence Crawford's going to sign with, that's what I'm interested in. Because surely he can't sign with anyone but PBC at this stage. Nobody else has any welterweights. Unless you're talking about Eddie Hearn with Conor Benn. But outside of that, nobody has welterweights. Jerome Ennis, who is he with? Is it like Cameron Duncan? But Cameron Duncan's a manager, right? And he just severed ties with some type of promotional company. Correct me if I'm wrong. So, and Jerome Ennis fights on PBC shows, right? Again, maybe I'm wrong here, but other than Jerome Ennis, every major fighter at welterweight is with the PBC. So Terence Crawford either needs to do a multi-fight deal with PBC, or he needs to try and work out some kind of one-fight deal, you know, fight-by-fight basis situation, where, of course, the goal is to fight Errol Spence. That's the fight that we all want to see, assuming Errol Spence gets past his next fight against Ugas. So, yeah, anyway, let me know what you guys think about everything that I've talked about in this video.